If evolution is true, then we're the animals.
Yes.
If evolution is not true, then we are the stewards. We are not the animals.
Yes.
Now, here is what the ancient Greeks observed. On a milkweed leaf, which had nothing on it, suddenly appears a caterpillar. Where did it come from? Their answer was from Gaia, the goddess of the earth, which gave the vitalism through the plant to the spontaneous generation of this worm-like organism. And what did the organism do? It's easy to observe. It spun itself into a chrysalis. What came out? A butterfly. What did they say? They said, this caterpillar evolved into a butterfly.
And without any guidance or supernatural manual to give them counsel, they saw an encapsulation of a transformation of living systems. So we might give them a bit of excuse for adopting that concept.
We might say they were imperfect observers because they didn't notice on the underneath side of the milkweed leaf there was that little bump which was only a millimeter long.
And they had no microscopes?
They had no microscopes. They tried to take it off with their fingernails. They couldn't because it was glued on with a glue stronger than the structure of the egg.
Marvelous.
Even with water, they weren't able to wash it off, so they assumed it was a blemish on the leaf, a natural blemish on the leaf. And they gave all the credit to Gaia, which was the personification of the Mother Earth,
yes,
which gave the vitalism,
energy and vitalism.
Gave all the vitalism, which spontaneously generated and evolved these organisms. So that then is Darwin's goddess. I know that you know of the book that was recently published, Darwin's God. There is no Darwin's God.
That's correct.
There is only Darwin's goddess, and it's Gaia.
Yes.
Now, when we look at the more perfect observation, which was made by Francesco Redi in 1668, what he discovered was the egg on the underneath side of the leaf laid by a female butterfly,
yes, the
which
living
was
organism.
Exactly the same as the butterfly that hatched from the chrysalis.
Yes.
No spontaneous generation, no evolution, strictly a reproductive process.
That's right.
With what we might say are two eggs. The first egg, the caterpillar. Second egg, the butterfly. Butterfly to butterfly.
Absolutely. So the transformation is a part of the design where the genetic information was already there.
No Gaia, no spontaneous generation, no evolution, and the archetype scientist, Francesco Redi, who used a fine microscope for his studies. And he was the one that said, it is vain to believe unless confirmed by experiment.
Yes. Yes.
That's the beginning of science.
So actually, he expelled evolution from its posture as factual observation. He expelled evolution.
He did. And that was 3.4 centuries ago. And here's what he gave for his testimony on what was believed before 1668. And I'll just mention the last part. Not only does the earth possess this occult power, but that it is possessed by all animals, living and dead, also by all things produced from the earth, and finally by those which are about to decay and return to dust. That's what they believed. That's what they taught.
Had believed to that point, but with his microscope, he expelled that concept
completely.
As a factual basis.
Completely.
Now
here what we have is the inventor of evolution, which was Anaximander. And he said the earth started lifeless. It spontaneously generated through Gaia the first organisms which struggled amongst themselves and made higher organisms. The same struggle, he said, devolved them back to lifelessness, and the cycle would continue. Gaia was the center.
Yes,
here's
vitalism, Earth's natural energies.
And here's what he said. At first, the Earth was a molten primeval planet. You'll find that in present-day biology textbooks.
Yes,
in
it's central.
The chapters on evolution. He said there was a primitive fluid that spawned life. They call it the what do they call it? The primeval soup?
Yes.
That's
yes.
in the biology textbooks. The
Yeah.
early life was in the sea, then terrestrial plants and animals. Our ancestors were fish. There's actually a whole book on that. Struggle exterminated inferior life.
Survival of the fittest.
The feather, the homologue of the fish's scale, is still in the biology books. Human embryo, like the chick embryo, has been expanded in the biology textbooks. That expansion was based on plagiarized drawings, which were subsequently doctored or
Yes.
modified
Fabricated.
they were fabricated to make it look like there was an evolutionary sequence. It was a complete fraud.
In fact, Ernst Haeckel, by his own university, was brought before trial and was expelled, condemned.
Found guilty.
Found guilty.
Without a doubt. Soma, which means body seeds, changed by the environment. They're inherited in our evolution's mechanism. And that means that if I, as a parent, lost a finger, then the subsequent children would be born without that finger. And of course, that's been false, known to be false for thousands of years.
Absolutely. So it has been expelled, yet the concept has held on because of its naturalistic explanation without giving an account to a supernatural creator, a divine creator.
You know what we should do? We should look in the biology textbooks. Because if you do, in the chapters on evolution, you will not find one footnote to a science journal.
Now that's astounding. You know, you and I, Joseph, you and I publish, and we are required by peer review and by journalistic honesty to document. I've published books, you've published books. You and I have hundreds of documentary references in our books. We're required to do so, to go back to the source. Yet, in the very textbooks, are you saying, in the very textbooks that our children use as foundationary for the principal decisions of life origins, there are no technical references?
None whatsoever. And if you look in the back of the book for the list of references, there are none. Now, if you think that was omitted because they didn't have time, think again. Because you will find a list, in some cases more than 1,000, to the pictures. The pictures.
The pictures.
But not the science. So what they're putting out for current-day biology textbooks are coffee table picture books.
This needs to be broadcast around the world. Dr. Mastropalo, you are exposing a hoax that has been expelled from the halls of fact and is relegated to a guess and a hypothesis, not even a good theory, but now in many of those same texts, it is presented as factual information, as if it were proved and accepted in full peer review by the academic community, which is not the case. You have challenged that. What are all these photos doing
Well,
here?
I wanted to show here that there are consequences, academic consequences, immediately that are taking place between 4th and 12th grade. Science achievement is suppressed 50%, and that's because the students have been told that the universe is the complete reverse of what it actually is in class. But when they go out of class, they are bound to see that what they've been taught is a complete fabrication.
So within their minds, there's a frustrative attitude and yet a negative response to scientific things because they can't believe what's called science.
They lose confidence in their science teachers, and they lose confidence in the whole subject of science, and the result is this decline in their scientific achievement. Now, the proof of this pudding is that we cannot graduate scientists into public life where they can become employed as scientists. Now, at Silicon Valley alone, that's only that one community just on the outskirts of San Jose. There are 1,400 foreign scientists employed because they cannot find American scientists to fill those positions.
Isn't that tragic?
It is.
And it goes back to the classroom and the mandated concept of naturalistic humanism, evolution.
So what I did was I noticed that there were no references. I couldn't find any evidence. So I asked these leading evolutionists in the world